Tech companies are laying off thousands and are pointing to AI as the reason. That seems to be a huge lie. Let's talk about it. So welcome to Dave is Not AI. I'm Dave, an AI expert and AI skeptic. Let's get started. So in the rapidly evolving corporate landscape right now, advancements in artificial intelligence are undoubtedly reshaping the future of work. But while AI promises operational efficiencies, its use in workforce realignment has highlighted crucial ethical considerations. A growing number of companies are leveraging AI and are using AI as a convenient scapegoat for laying many people off. Salesforce recently laid off 4,000 employees, primarily from its customer support division, citing AI advancements as the reason for workforce rebalancing and quote-unquote rebalancing. The CEO, Mark Benioff, claimed AI was streamlining operations, but only a small portion of staff were redeployed, leaving thousands of roles unaccounted for. So we're seeing this as a common thing right now. AI is obviously changing aspects of work, but it hasn't really done the major improving I think people thought it would be doing here in 2025 and into 2026. But what companies are doing is they're laying people off and in many instances replacing them with cheaper workers and then pointing to AI for the reasoning to do it, which seems a little disingenuous. So I'd rather them come clean, tell us why they're laying people off. They're doing so to improve profits. They're going to backfill them with people typically going to take that are going to take cheaper salaries, and that's going to benefit them. But they're hiding that. They're saying AI advancements in technology are using, weird buzzwords like rebalancing. So, and then there's odd things that are going on while these layoffs are occurring. So simultaneously at the time of the layoffs, Salesforce increased H-1B visa applications to fill technical and AI related positions, sparking criticism that AI was being used as a scapegoat for cost cutting and labor globalization. While AI's impact on jobs are real, industry experts suggest financial pressures, including $300 million restructuring budget, were likely driving those layoffs rather than purely technological transformation. And I couldn't agree more. If you look at the math, it just doesn't add up. So if you're laying people off because you're automating things with AI, certainly customer service, and there's potential there to automate certain aspects of customer service with AI, you're not going to be rehiring. You're going to let that automation take over those positions, but that's not what's going on. And so there's laying people off. They're simultaneously hiring through the H-1B visa program because they're able to get access to workers for lower wages. Now, I'm not going to make any kind of, this is not a political show or any kind of political statements about the use or the benefits of H-1B visas and things like that. I'm just stating it as a fact. So in other words, if you're laying people off, you're hiring other people through H-1B visas or any other mechanism for that reason, come clean with that, because that seems a bit disingenuous. And certainly it's not necessarily being fair to the people who are being laid off. So they're being replaced by lower paid workers. That should be stated. And if we're doing it for purely profit reasons, that should also be stated. These, mealy-mouthed, kind of spin that we're hearing from these CEOs out there around laying people off and then blaming it on AI when there's no evidence that that's actually occurring is leading to the fact that these guys are just a bit disingenuous and shouldn't be trusted. So AI is a convenient narrative to explain workforce reductions, often replacing domestic employees with cheaper H-1B visa workers. So that seems to be the tactic right now. These tactics raise questions about whether these layoffs are truly driven by technology or if AI is being used as a scapegoat for other business decisions rooted in cost-cutting and optics. And we're seeing this in other areas as well, not just focusing on customer service and laying people off in terms of AI automation, but even using AI as a motivator within many of these businesses. For example, Andy Jassy came out a few months ago and he says many of the roles that they have currently in Amazon are going to be replaced with AI. And that's a little odd in terms of pushing poor morale into your culture. Obviously, everybody's going to be a little put off by that. Certainly if you're working, you're making a livelihood from Amazon or any tech firm for that reason. So as you can see with the chart on the screen, Salesforce is not the only offender with this kind of stuff. So looking at the total layoffs due to AI, which have been announced, and the H-1B visa petitions that are filed at the same time, Salesforce is obviously the leader, but Microsoft's there, Meta's there, Amazon's there, Alphabet, which is Google, IBM's there, and some other companies as well. And these are just the ones that really kind of appeared in my research. And you can check that out in the description. So it's a common trick that many of these companies are doing. In my opinion, it's disingenuous because they should be truthful of what it is. And again, I have no opinion on the viability or fairness of the H-1B visa program. I'm just talking about the honesty of the way in which they're releasing information around using AI as something that's typically not going to be used for. This confuses people because many other organizations are and they're saving a lot of money on automating, some of these core customer service systems with AI. I need to go figure out how to do it. And the technology in many cases isn't ready for them yet. So they're going to try it and fail because they can't find an adequate replacement for human beings that are answering the phone. And as we talked about here in the show before, in many cases, in many instances, humans want to talk to other human beings and they don't want to talk to AI IVR systems, or they're not willing to participate in a chatbot conversation. And so that's going to be going on, I think, for a while. So organizations that are rushing too quickly into AI and organizations that are using AI as a convenient excuse for doing things that they normally wouldn't do in the public eye, I think are going to have some backlash from this. And they're seeing it now. And number one, I'm doing the show. So I'm calling out the actual impact of AI on workforce efficiency. I think, much of what they're doing out there and the way in which they're spinning it, as we mentioned earlier in the show, is quite frankly BS. So despite the claims of AI replacing jobs at scale, evidence suggests that technological advancements are not yet advanced enough to really entirely eliminate human roles at the scale that they're claiming right now, especially in customer-facing or high-stakes functions. And that seems to be key. Many organizations that had a knee-jerk reaction to start laying people off quickly when they deployed AI-based customer service systems ended up hiring them back because I think the customers and the employees revolted. And we're seeing similar outcomes that are occurring when companies try to move fast to AI, certainly when the technology is not ready. So let's look at the stats. So a study by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis showed a correlation between AI adoption and increased unemployment in certain sectors. Yet only 15% of occupations were deemed sufficiently automatable, that's a word, in 2025. So we're not seeing the advanced technology at a level where it's going to provide immediate value back to the business. And we're certainly not seeing the technology advance so much where you're going to be able to lay people off in 2025 and perhaps 2026. So any kind of actions you see moving in those directions, typically the companies, as we covered here on the show, are making huge mistakes that are going to cost them a lot of money in terms of PR, customer satisfaction, customer relationships, things like that. And they're going to end up having to undo it. We're seeing this happen all over the place. People are moving too quickly to AI. Companies are moving too quickly to AI. The technology doesn't work as sold to them by these tech players out there. And they have to hit the reset button and get back to where they were before. And many times after customers have actually left the business. You do that too many times, your business is gone. So the pressure with these publicly traded companies is going to be revenue. I've been the officer of 3 publicly traded companies, and let me tell you, quarter-on-quarter growth is a real thing. They're expecting you to grow the business. And AI is often a convenient cover story for deeper structural issues within the company, such as companies failing to hit revenue or margin targets, due to rising operational costs. And we're seeing costs go up right now. People cost more, stuff costs more, buildings cost more, transportation costs more. And the pressure is for them to reduce costs, because if you reduce costs, then your revenue will typically go up without having to increase sales. And I think that's an easier thing to do because you're able to control costs more so than revenue. Revenue is based on people's ability to buy your stuff in the marketplace. Cost cutting is something is something you can pull, you can change within your organization. So that's why they're doing it. So look at some of the stats there. Salesforce tripled its restructuring budget in just one quarter from 2025. This suggested that revenue pressures or investor demands may have driven layoffs more than AI advancement. So what happened was the investors, the street, institutional investors, retail investors, things like that are investing in companies like Salesforce.com, quite frankly, ask the question, what's going on? We think you're spending too much money for the revenue that's coming in. And they look at metrics that are aligned with their direct peers. And so the pressure was on Salesforce to do something about this. And this is the path they chose. Let's lay people off. Let's blame AI for it. And let's backfill those people with cheaper workers. So there's an ethical dilemma here that we have to consider as well. We're dehumanizing the workforce, which I don't think is something we should be doing right now. And certainly I've been in AI for 30 plus years. I understand it's going to have some opportunities to take on positions that are traditionally occupied by humans, and that's going to be an evolving shift over many years. But it's not something I think we can do at the speed that everybody thinks it can be done in 2025 and 2026. So we also have to look at the ethical concerns of doing this. We're dealing with human beings here. So the shift from valuing humans as assets to framing them as heads or resources, coincides with the AI-driven rhetoric in corporate layoffs. So this mindset is a departure from previous workforce philosophies that emphasize employee empowerment. And so we've had this issue for a long period of time. We've always had the employees versus the management. That's why we have unions and all sorts of organizations that represent the workers within these organizations. Not pro-union or anything else. I'm not a political person, but at the end of the day, humans work for you and you need to treat them well as humans. And whether there's a layoff coming because of operational efficiencies you're looking to drive in your business, and as companies, you have the right to do that. If you're a private company, you can use as many or as few people in your organization as you think you need. But I think these things where you're doing this kind of bait and switch kind of thing, doing this spin where you're in essence lying about why these layoffs are occurring is probably not a good idea for the humans that work for you and understanding how their jobs are being eliminated, because that's typically not going to be the case. I would rather be honest with them about what you're doing. We're laying you off because you're expensive, and we're going to replace you with people that are less expensive. And blaming AI for that, I think, is the wrong thing to do. And many of the organizations are doing it now, which is a bit concerning. And the thing is, do they think we're stupid? You can read the stats out there and get to the bottom of this, like many of the articles in the description did, pretty quickly. And I think it leaves them looking stupid. So not we're looking stupid because we don't understand it. We do, but I think they're looking stupid because they think the public is stupid. So the narrative that AI is replacing jobs often obscures deeper structural challenges such as revenue pressures or cost-cutting measures like replacing domestic workers with lower wage H-1B visa employees. So by clinging to an AI-based rationale, companies risk alienating their workforce and misrepresenting the true drivers behind the layoffs. Tell us the truth, guys. We're not stupid. We can figure it out. The world of the internet is here. We can get at any piece of information at any time. And so if you state something that's untrue, we're going to figure that out pretty quick. So conversations must shift toward fostering transparency, ensuring ethical workforce transitions, and prioritizing retraining initiatives to help displaced employees to adapt to evolving roles in an AI-driven future. So the right thing to do here is, if you are going to be contracting your workforce, is figure out what to do with those human beings. Those are people who are already hired. You've already figured out whether they're good employees or bad employees or whatever, and figured out they're productive, resources for the company, and use them to the best of their advantages and your advantages. So retrain them in where their roles are likely going to be in 3 to 4 years when AI starts actually displacing, some of these jobs out there for legitimate reasons. And I think many organizations aren't stepping up to do that. The assumption that the employees are ultimately evil and they're trying to remove resources from the company as best they can is outdated. That doesn't work anymore. Good people are hard to find out there, as you know, if you're out there hiring in the space. And once you get them and they're in your organization, value them, retrain them, invest in them, and you're going to find that investment's going to come right back to your business. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my other videos on this channel. Also, check out my InfoWorld Cloud Computing blog, my 100 plus LinkedIn learning courses, and of course, my generative AI architecture course out on Go Cloud Careers. And finally, my latest book, An Insider's Guide to Cloud Computing. So until next week, stay very, very safe. Later.